Hey everyone, welcome back. So I just want to talk about AWS Lambda, kind of the do's, the don'ts, the mistakes that I made, and maybe you won't have to make the same mistakes and incur the cost that I did. Um, I'll just explain. If you don't know, if you're watching this video, I'm assuming you know what Lambda is. But if you don't, it's pretty much not that. Pretty much serverless computing. So it's in the word serverless. You don't have to set up your own EC2 to run some Python code or whatever. That's what serverless is. The pros are they manage the scaling. So imagine you had a lot of traffic. They'll manage all of that. You don't have to worry about load balancers and all this kind of stuff. They manage all of that for you. It's much more resilient. That kind of stuff you get with serverless. So all of that hassle goes away. You just write your code and then that is it. For me, the problems I ran into, if I go to AWS, just to show, not AWS, sorry. What am I doing? Lambda. If I go to Lambda, the problems I ran into was if I create a function, call this test function, and I say no, it's Python, whatever, Python 310. x64 fine, create the function. Let that just create for a second. Give it a second. So obviously to create your Lambda, you can obviously literally just, what about that? You can literally write your code, wherever your Python code is, and then deploy and then test, right? And then to create the Lambda function, you either do it that way. So it's pretty much simple code. Let's say all you need is importing the JSON library. It's fine, But if you come from the Python world, you'll probably need the least thing you would need is the request library. I'll be almost certain you need the request library. So if I deploy this, right, and I create a test event, call it test, save it, and then if I test, that will error out. Yes, so you can see it says the request library is not found. So you kind of have to set up all of this stuff. So how do you do it? You can the one that I used to use was you zip up. So you have a virtual environment, you zip it up, and then you upload it here. I'll find the documentation if you need it, and I'll put it in the description of the video. But obviously you then create it from a zip file, and then you have the packages you need, and so on and so forth. And then the other option is via S3. I didn't go for an S3 because I thought, okay, if you didn't have to download it before you run anything, that means your invocation time is more. You might have to pay more, and so on and so forth. So I didn't use S3. Maybe that would have been a better option for what I was trying to do. But anyway, I didn't use S3. I was trying to do a zip file. So the frustrating thing for me was the package I was using, I wanted to use to do removing backgrounds, was this by Daniel Gaddis. Great package, but it was huge. The amount, I can't remember off the top of my head what it was, but it was a lot. And I just couldn't upload it because there's a limit to how much a zip file would. I believe it's like 50 MB or something like that. Let me see if I've direct upload via the AWS console is 50 MB. Via S3 is 200 MB. So you see what I mean? You've got limits to what you can do with a zip file. So that was one of the frustrations I had. So what to do? Or just before I do that, before I say that, I have this app, or this was the app I was using. So what was happening is you upload it, you upload this, and then you can sort of convert to black and white. And as you can see, it's processing, and then black and white, and then you download. How is this app working? Pretty straightforward. Django uploads to an S3 here. I have a background salary task that knows that this file has now been uploaded, goes and grabs it, does some processing, re-uploads to another folder in that same bucket. That will then invoke Lambda, which gets the S3 event metadata, so it knows what the file is and so on and so forth. So it knows what the file is and so on. And then I have a webhook. To this where is it? To this app. And then Lambda just tells via the webhook, okay, the file has now been processed by Celery. You're free to say it's processed, take off the bar, and as you can see, it's, you've got your processed file. So that's how that worked. To do the background, I needed that this package, right? How on earth am I going to get that? How am I going to get all those files I need for Lambda to process this? Because I can't do it via zip. It was just too big. S3 again, I think it was even bigger, even for an S3. It was a lot. So I was like, okay, what on earth am I going to do now? So one of the options was, and I went with this, was an EFS, right? You have a Elastic file service. I believe it's file. Is it file service? I can't remember now. What is it? God. EFS. File system. Sorry. God, I can't remember that. Elastic file system. So I thought, okay, I can use that, mount it to an EC2. The EC2 will mount that EFS. I use the usual pip install, get all the files here, and then Lambda can then access this. That was my thought process. The problem came that Lambda, this is in a virtual private VPC. Lambda is not, right? So I had to get Lambda into a VPC, and then Lambda was then able to access this EFS. Problem solved, not really, because Lambda now in a VPC has no connection to the internet. I was like, oh God, you got to be kidding me. So then I had to get something called a NAT gateway. Create a NAT gateway for the Lambda. That NAT gateway then gave Lambda abilities, gave it connection to the internet. It could then send me the webhook after it did the processing of that background. It could send via the webhook, tell me it's processed and everything was working. And I think my invocations were going up to about 10 milliseconds, so it was really pushing it. Because that package, I believe, has a lot of machine learning models. It was getting had to invoke all those models, get all the data in, so it was taking a long time to process. And maybe I shouldn't have done it that way. Maybe there's another way. If you know, just let me know. So that was my problem. And then and it was working. It's not like it wasn't working. It was working absolutely fine. And that's a great package and everything, but like my first bill was $200 for that first month, and I was like, oh my God, this is nuts, to remove the background from an image. So I thought, no, I can't do that. I decided to stop the service, right? So when I say stop the service, I mean I just removed it from one of the list of services I offer. So I removed it from the service. And then no EFS, no nothing, any of that sort. Sorry, I've got my cats bugging me. EFS. So none of this stuff existed anymore. And then I thought, okay, fine. For now, until I figure out another way of doing this, I'll just pause for the time being. So I got rid of the service, got rid of the EFS, all that stuff. So I thought, okay, no problem. But then the next month, I got $100. You can't see it there, but like $100, right? So I'm like, why am I getting $100? I've removed the EFS because that's what I thought it was, the EFS. So I got rid of the EFS, and then I got this $100. I was still getting this $100 bill, and after a lot of investigation, I found out that NAT service I was using to give Lambda the internet access was costing me $26 a month without just to have that NAT service. So as you can imagine, even though I wasn't doing much, I already $26 was just that NAT service. So then I got rid of the NAT service, got rid of everything, and then what I ended up doing was wrapping the app around Stability AI, because they've got the resources. Let them just do it themselves. I just buy some credit. And the way I did this app is, at the moment it's free, but eventually I'll move it to Stripe, and I've already got it set up. So if I do remove background, you'll notice it still works, and it'll remove the background. There we go. It's now removed the background, and it works absolutely fine. If I download, open, you'll see the background is now gone. So all of that works fine. So yeah, so I got rid of all of that now. So the way the app works now, I've just got the one Lambda function, the one S3 bucket. There's S3 Lambda's not doing any background removing anymore. It just serves this purpose of sending me a webhook, sending a request via the webhook to tell me an image has been processed. That's all it's really doing now. And now I think my bill has really come down. I was looking at it yesterday. It's really, really diminished now. It's pretty much nothing. So things to remember. Just be careful of recursion, any loops or anything in your Lambda functions. Be careful of how much memory you're going to be using when you invoke that Lambda function. Stay away from NAT gateways. If you ever have, I'll show you another way of doing this. I think it's a better approach. If you got massive file size, you have a lot of packages your code needs in order for it to work. There's another way is, I've got it here somewhere, is you run the Lambda function via container images. So you link it to a container image, and then you do it that way. And I'll put this in the docs, this tutorial. It shows you exactly. I've kind of done this just to show that it's working. So I've built a local image. So what you will need is access to ECR, which is ECR, Elastic Container Registry. So you push the image up there, and then you link it to Lambda. So that's what you'll need on the actual, where is it? So yeah, then you log into the ECR, you tag that image. Where is it? You tag the image, and then you push it up. And I've kind of done all of that here. I've got this bash script that just logs into the ECR, tags the URL with that, and then pushes it up. I believe I have ECR. Create a repository. You've got to create a repository. I don't think I've got a repository. No, you've got to create a repository. I'm going to call it images/request test. That's my repo, and I'm just going to push that image I've got locally there. So you can see the link here, and what I'm going to do is run this and push it up. I'll have to blur all of this out because I don't want you to see some of my stuff. So I'm just going to do .push.sh. My thing is that and it's request-test. If I push that up, so as you can see, you can't actually see it. If I just move, you can see it's pushing up now. But yeah, that's pushing it up. So I'll just pause while that pushes up to ECR. Okay, so this has now pushed up to ECR. If I go back and look at you can see the base image here, the latest one here. And then according to this docs, you've got to then create a Lambda function and link it to that base image. And that's what I'm going to do now. If you just bear with me. Actually, before I do that, let me go back to Lambda and get rid of that test function. I don't need this. Confirm. Yes. Because what I'll do is I'll use the AWS CLI to create it. So that's that. I'm just going to pause while I kind of replicate this. It's pretty straightforward. You create your Lambda function, name your function. Your image is the URL you will get once you've created your repository on ECR. That's what that is. And then here you just got the role. You probably got a role somewhere in your, or create a role for yourself or for Lambda and just attach that. So that's what I'm going to do. Just give me a second. Okay, so I'm just going to run that. And that should create me a function. If I go back and refresh, you should see test requests here now. This has been created, and you can see package type says image. If I go back and I come down here, you can see no code to preview, linked to an image. If I do a test and then I create a test event, call it test_1, save that, and notice how before I was getting a error, request library not found. If I do test now, you will see it works. And what you're seeing here, webhook not set, is that webhook not set, that because I've not got no environment variable. So you can see it's linking to the image and it's running, so I don't have to use the whole zip way of doing it. And I believe it's about 10 gig you can have in terms of ECR, your base image or something like that. So you've got a lot more wiggle room, as it were. So that's another way of doing it. And if you don't know, if you want to set up your environment variables, you can do it here. I tend to kind of do it here. I know some people say you shouldn't, but I don't see why this is a problem. Underscore URL. If I did that and I did test 1 2 3, save that, let that just save, and then once that's saved, you should see the environment variable come through. If I go back to test and now test again, and you will see 1 2 3. So you got the environment variable coming through. Now normally I use the secrets manager to do it, but I struggled to get the container. So you have to create a task definition, and then quite complicated. You have to create a container that links to that base image and pass environment variables there, but I could not get it to work. But if you know a way of doing it, let me know. But this is how I got it to work. So I think this is a much better approach than what I was doing with the whole NAT gateway and last EFS and all that kind of stuff. It cost me so much money. I think this is a much better approach. Anyway, so that was my this is a kind of a don't, if you can avoid it, an EFS with Lambda. It really costs you a lot of money, because a Lambda, like I say, is not part of a VPC. You need to get it into a VPC to get to an EFS. But in a VPC, you don't have access to internet, then you need a NAT gateway, and it costs a lot of money. So stay away from it if you can. So yeah, that's it for this video. Give me a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Ciao. Bye.